Okay, the following is a video on the unit circle and how to fill it out. Um, this is kind of my method on how to do it. You guys can do whatever you want to do it. I'm just going to kind of show you how I go through it. What we're trying to do is trying to fill out the unit circle. Now remember that we're trying to write down the points along a circle of radius 1. So I'm going to go ahead here and start this off with 0 degrees and 0 radians, and this is the point 1, 0. Okay, this is your x-axis, this is your y-axis on the graph. Okay, now the interesting thing about a circle is that the circle contains 360 degrees. So if I do one revolution around the circle, I have gone 360 degrees. And that's the same as 2 pi radians. Now, guys, remember that that is the circumference of the circle, okay? If it has radius 1, 2 times the radius times pi gives you 2 pi, okay? So, and that's just the arc length. That's the distance around. That's what a radian is, okay? So now what I'm going to do, to get my other point, I'm just going to kind of go over here and say that this is the point, -1, 0. If I take 360 and divide that by 2, I get 180. Okay, if I take 2 pi and divide it by 2, then I just get pi. Okay, pi radians. All right, if I divide this by 2 and come up here to 90 degrees, okay, this is the point 0, 1. And then this is, if I take pi and divide that by 2, I get pi over 2 radians, okay? Now, if I take this and divide it by 2, I get 45 degrees, and I get pi over 4 radians, okay? Now, we know by our special right triangles that if I have a 45, 45, 90 triangle, that this distance here, this distance and this distance are the same, okay? Sorry, I need to backtrack. And so this x value and this y value are going to be the same, and that's the square root of 2 over 2 and the square root of 2 over 2, okay? Now, these other points right here, I know this is a 30-degree angle. This is another special right triangle that we use here. And then this is a 60-degree angle, okay? Now, if I take pi, I have I have 6 30-degree angles here. And so if I take 180 and divide that by 6, okay, it gives me 30 degrees. But if I take pi and divide that by 6, I get pi over 6. Okay, my x value here, my x distance of this triangle that's made right here is longer than the y value. So I'm going to call this the square root of 3 over 2. And I'm going to call this 1/2, okay? And that's kind of how I remember. I just kind of think of the lengths of this triangle. I don't memorize anything. I just have to think about it for a second. Okay, and then I know that at 60 degrees, okay, that's 2 pi over 6's, which is just pi over 3 radians. And then this is 1/2 and the square root of 3 over 2. Okay, so the important thing here is that if you can memorize this part or know how to generate it, then you can generate everything else, okay? So what I'm going to do is, the pattern that I recognize is that every time I go from 90, I increase by 30, okay? Each of these are increased by 30. So I'm just going to kind of fill these out by the angles. If this is 90, add 30, that gives me 120 degrees. Add another 30, we get 150 degrees. Add 30 from 180, I get 210 degrees. Add 30 to that, I get 240. Add 30 to that, I get 270. Add 30 to that, I get 300. Add 30 to that, I get 330 degrees. And if I add 30, I get back to 360. Okay. Now, as far as radians go, I kind of know that pi over 3 is directly across the y-axis from that. And so that's going to give me 2 pi over 3. Okay. And then the next one, okay, so here's how I remember that. I know that the 2 is 1 less than the 3 in this one. In the next quadrant, I know that this is going to be 4 pi over 3. It's 1 more than 3, okay? And then if I flip over and go over to this quadrant, the fourth quadrant, I know I'm 1 less than double 3, so I'm 1 less than 6, so I'm at 5 pi over 3. Okay, again, guys, this is just how I remember this. You guys do what you got to do, okay? Okay, so then if this is pi over 6, then I know that this one is going to be 1 less than 6, so it's going to be 5 pi over 6. This one is going to be 7 pi over 6. This one over here is going to be 11 pi over 6. Okay, again, 5 is 1 less than 6. 7 is 1 more than 6. 11 is 1 less than double 6. That's kind of how I remember that. Okay, and then we can just fill in the points, okay? And they're just reflected over the y-axis and the x-axis. So over here, this is going to be negative 1/2 square root of 3 over 2. This is going to be negative square root of 3. Make sure I get a negative sign out there. Over 2. 1/2. I'm going to go ahead and reflect this down. Both of them are negative, so this is negative root 3 over 2, negative 1/2. Reflect this one down. They're both negative, so this is negative 1/2. Negative root 3 over 2. Reflect this over. The y value is negative, so this is 1/2. And this is negative root 3 over 2. This one is reflected over. Okay, so this is square root of 3 over 2, and then negative 1/2. Okay, so that's those. All right, so then the 45 ones, the ones go by 45s, those are pretty easy. And I notice I just add 15 to this angle right here, okay? So same thing over here. If I add 15 to 120, I'm going to get 135. Okay, if I had 15 to 210, I'm going to get 225. If I had 15 to 300, I'm going to get 315 degrees. Okay, and same thing goes with my radians. Okay, I've got pi over 4. This one's going to be 3 pi over 4. This one down here is going to be 5 pi over 4. This one over here is going to be 7 pi over 4. Okay, and again, 3 is 1 less than 4. 5 is 1 more than 4. 7 is 1 less than double of 4. Okay, and then the points are pretty easy. Okay, the x value is negative here, negative root 2 over 2, positive root 2 over 2. This one over here, they're both negative, negative root 2 over 2, and then root 2 over 2. And then the x value is positive, so root 2 over 2, and then the y value is negative, negative root 2 over 2. Okay, this point down here is the point 0, negative 1, and if this is pi over 2, pi, this would need to be 3 pi over 2. Okay, and so that's it. I filled everything out. Once I do this part, I can generate everything else. If you want to memorize this, that's fine. But guys, you should be able to reproduce this very, very quickly. We will rarely use degrees in this class, just simply because we just use radians, because we prefer to deal with these kinds of distances rather than angle measures, okay? Pi over 6, this is a distance. This is the distance from here to here along the curve, okay? That's what a radian is. So I hope you enjoyed this, and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.